Going to the presentation from Effo and from Janus Thomsen. He's the CEO of Effo, which is a local oil distribution company and also active in the renewable energy sector. So please, floor is yours.
Yeah, Sigurd, still? Yeah, well, thank you, Sigurd, and thank you for having me on this webinar. As Sigurd said, my name is Janus Thomsen, and I am a CEO of Effo, which is a Faroese energy company, of course, based here in the Faroe Islands. And I would just like to speak a bit about just a short introduction about the company and which plans we have regarding sustainability and some challenges we see in the market as well. So just a short introduction to Effo. We're based here, as I said, in the Faroe Islands. We are under Faroese ownership, Faroese investors, established in 1918, so it's quite an old company. Formerly a part of Esso, and somewhere in the 80s became a part of Statoil. And then in 2007, some Faroese investors came together and bought the Norwegian, the Faroese branch of Statoil. So since 2007, we've been a Faroese company. When I say energy company, I have to admit that we're primarily an oil company, as things are at the moment. Just some stats here. We deliver around 22 million liters of gas and gasoline and diesel to transport, around 22 million liters to households, around 1 million liters of jet fuel, and 80 million liters of gas oil to the marine segment, and 130,000 tons of heavy fuel oil to the marine segment and to heavy industry. So that's quite large numbers, and this is around half of the Faroese market. We have around half of the Faroese market. Apart from this is the total number of heavy fuel or total volume of heavy fuel in the Faroe Islands. We have a distribution network around, basically the entire country. We have 13 gas stations, and then we have made our entrance into the sustainability journey, and in 18 we bought half of a company which produces wind power. So currently, also today, it's quite windy. We actually produce green energy. It's a very small plant, but as Kari mentioned, we are working on constructing a 25 megawatt wind farm here just above the capital in Tórshavn. So that's very exciting. Regarding our sustainability journey, we have entered this initiative called the Faroese Sustainable Business Initiative, which Anna will describe and go into more detail later on. But in that initiative, we are some businesses who have come together and agreed upon some milestones. And we have agreed to reduce our CO2 emissions by 50% in 2030. And that's scope 1 and 2. And also, being one of the big players in the energy market in the Faroe Islands, we want to help our customers and support their sustainable journey. So we want to support their efforts to become more sustainable and by providing sustainable products to them. So the big question is, how do we do that? And before I move on, before you get too excited, I have to admit I don't have the definite answer. So just relax. If I start off with some opportunities we see in the green energy market, of course we have looked at wind farms because that's a political goal we have in the Faroe Islands. That's a market we can do something. And as I said, we're currently constructing this wind farm, which will produce 100 gigawatt hours per year. And internationally, that's quite small, but here in the Faroe Islands, it's a huge project, actually. it will raise the wind power from 12% to around 40%. If we look at these slides over here, we can see that the current wind production is around 12%, and our plant will generate around 28%. We'll increase that, so it's around 40%. And 100 gigawatt hours, that equals all the consumption of all households in the Faroe Islands. So it's quite a large project. And also, if all the vehicles in the Faroe Islands were electrical vehicles, that would amount to around 100 gigawatt hours. So it's a large project. So it's very, very exciting. And as we heard earlier, also there's some work being done currently with a pump to storage facility, and that's also a project we have focused quite a lot on and are very keen on being a part of as well. And as we see it, it's essential, it's imperative to have a storage like this, because we need to store energy in the future also, especially when demand exceeds supply of sustainable energy. Because when in our industry, in the oil industry, we need to have a stable supply of fuels. We cannot live without fuels for 3 days and say, don't worry, 3 days we'll be back. It doesn't work that way, and it won't work that way with other fuels. So it's just a fact. We try to work within a concept, but we always need to have an open mind as well. So we aren't fixed on one technology. We try to see what's going on around the world. And if we look beyond the electricity produced by wind farms, which fuels will be used for heavy-duty vehicles and heavy industry and the marine segment, etc. And there are a lot of possibilities. There isn't a certain path to follow as it is right now, and there are a lot of possibilities. But as I say here, no matter which path is followed, it seems like hydrogen will play a major part, no matter what. And if we look at this picture here, we can see that it describes various fuels which are being discussed as the future fuels. And in all those fuels, if it's, of course, hydrogen, and then the green ammonia or synthetic fuels or methanol, it always contains hydrogen. So hydrogen, it seems now, will play a major part. So that's something we have noticed, and therefore we think that, well, hydrogen, we should focus on that at least. And looking at hydrogen in the Faroe Islands, it seems quite ideal to produce hydrogen here. We have a lot of the ingredients, we have the elements on our side. We have lots of water, probably too much if you ask us who live here, and lots of wind. But that's the ingredients we need to produce hydrogen. So that's very good in that regard. If we look at a market situation, we can say that Faroe Islands are situated here in the middle of nowhere, some say, but in the middle of the North Atlantic. It's like a highway gas station, so it should be appealing to the marine market to come in here and get their supplies of fuels, as they do, as we can see they do today. And if we are successful in the Faroe Islands in producing hydrogen or other sustainable fuels to a low cost, we can be competitive to our neighboring countries and maybe turn it around to the picture we see today, where we import all the energy, then we can probably export it. That's a nice thought, we think. Looking a bit more inland in the Faroe Islands, we see that the Faroe Islands is quite a small country. It's well developed, so it should be possible to make a relatively quick transformation, because the decision makers are never far away, and the companies are never far away, so everyone can interact and have a good discussion about this, as we are doing, for example, in this by doing this. Also, we can say that in the Faroe Islands we are always on island mode. We are not connected to any other grids around Europe, so we are heavily dependent on our own energy production. And that's a bad thing in many ways, because maybe the prices could be lower, etc. But when we see scenarios like we see now in Europe and other places where the prices are exploding, we can say, well, maybe it's not that bad that we are alone here in the North Atlantic, because, for example, the wind farm we are producing now, or are erecting the windmills now. There's a fixed price for the next 20 years. So in the Faroe Islands, we know what the price of energy will be for the next 20 years, and that's a really good thing. And looking at the distribution network, there currently is an existing network around all the islands, which consists of gas stations, of storage facilities, etc. So the areas are there. So it should be possible to transform them into to other fuels. So let's move on to the challenges. Unfortunately, there are quite a few. I've just said it is a positive that we are here in the North Atlantic by our own, but it's also a negative, because we really need to have a consistent production of supply, like of energy, like we do with supply today. There's for the last 100 years, it never happened that we didn't have any fuels here, and if we are to only produce our own energy here, we really need to be careful and do it the right way, so we always have enough fuel in the Faroe Islands. Our main energy consumers in the Faroe Islands are heavy industry and fishing vessels, and their consumption varies quite a lot, depending on, for example, seasonal fishing, and it's difficult to manage storage. It's actually difficult as it is, so it's probably it won't be easier in the future. Sustainable electricity production during summer periods, there's a low production, and that's something we need to fix, and we can do that by having large storages, for example, pump to storage, as we talked about earlier. The grid costs currently are too high if we want to produce and be competitive in producing green fuels. So probably the only solution is probably to go off-grid and just erect some wind turbines who produce, for example, hydrogen directly. And the hydrogen technology, the production facilities, they're still quite expensive, but hydrogen production has come a long way as we see it. There's a lot of companies developing electrolyzers which produce hydrogen, but storage and distribution is still lacking, and it's a major challenge. The good thing is that technology advances fast, but the bad thing with that is it's extremely difficult for decision makers to say we want to we'll focus on this technology and just establish some factories or something based on this technology, because after a year or two it has changed. So it's very difficult to make decisions when things go as fast as this. So just to sum it up, the elements are present for hydrogen production in the Faroe Islands. We think we have a lot of water and we have a lot of wind. It's a small but well-developed country, so we should make a transition possible. And the greatest challenges as we see it are costs and securing stable supply to the market, and storage and distribution. Those are the major challenges. And every sustainable fuel seems to include hydrogen, so hydrogen we're quite sure will play a part in the future, as things are now. That's it. Thank you.
Janus, I think there are questions.
Yeah.
It's on.
Okay, sorry, these questions may be for yourself, but they may also be for Kari, so apologies for the slight delay. So the first question, whichever of you want to pick it up, are there any plans for hydrogen, are there any hydrogen projects in plans already on the Faroes?
No, not currently. Not no.
Okay.
Not concrete projects, just ideas and discussions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just while I find these.
Maybe someone else has plans. I don't. Yeah.
There's a question here from Anton, and I think it's directed at Kari. Is your prediction of surplus energy, in your prediction of surplus energy, what assumptions were made in terms of increasing electrical vehicle use or increasing heat pump use?
So the question is how we can use surplus energy in...
No, what were your predictions for increasing use based
Oh, yeah.
on?
Yes, the predictions are that that we are going to be 100% renewable in the consume or in the energy sector. When we talk about energy to heating and energy to transport on land, we will change all the park. So that will diminish the amount of surplus energy, of course. But as I mentioned, it is not enough to get rid of it. So it's still a source for new thinking and new development. I don't know. Is that good? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, and the last question, again, maybe to either of you. Has the case for offshore wind been considered on the Faroes?
Kari, that one's for you.
I think this is a very interesting question, and I plan to have something about it but 15 minutes is too little time. We are looking into offshore wind, but it's my own opinion, is that when the floating wind turbines will be ready, and they are ready, and when they will go down in price and in cost of production, maybe in 5 years it will come down to under 50 euro per megawatt hour, then it will be really interesting case for the Faroe Islands, because we are a small place on land, but we are a very big place on sea. We have maybe the size of Denmark in area where we can put floating wind turbines out of sight, but in close 25 kilometers out. So really, and this is also one great opportunity for producing hydrogen. There are of course challenges, but I think that there will be solutions.
Okay, thank you very much, Janus. We will just take a 5-minute break.